All right, we're live. Welcome to the List Podcast, episode 2. I'm here with Josh, and we got the kid with us as well.
Showed up on time for once.
Yes. I didn't know that we'd even make it this far. Episode 2, that is.
You all right, kid? You look pretty cranky, dude. Is your mic off? Hello? Hello?
Well, I'm also happy to mention that we actually got approved to be on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. So you can now find us, our audio version of our podcast, on iTunes.
We made it big, all one episode.
So yeah, I think it was a good thing that we got approved. It was just maybe just a coincidence that it was the kid's first time here. But what do you got to say about that, kid?
Well, I mean, it was, worth you guys bringing me on because obviously now we are highly successful since I started becoming on the show. My fans are bringing the views to our videos that you guys lacked in your episode without me. So, I'm just happy to be here to carry this podcast and, try to keep bringing the numbers in as everybody gets to know the kid.
All right. Well, I think you left enough of an impact on the last episode that we wanted to make you a permanent part of this podcast, actually.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris.
He says we, but he meant him.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chris, do you hear that?
Oh, you can't hear me. Okay. What is this about? Why can't you hear me?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like an audio issue, but I'm hearing like some sort of moronic wind breeze happening. I don't know if that's something on your end. It's definitely not mine because there's no morons here.
I'm pretty sure it's a mental problem.
Sorry, there it is again.
All right, guys. I know you guys might have got a little bit off onto the wrong foot during the last episode.
I signed on, and then he's starting already. This is going to be a long show.
Okay, so before we go any further, I'll address that moronic windbag over there. So my issue is his editing. So if he's going to edit future episodes, he better not be cutting out anything that I say because that's where the money's at. So when he's cutting out my name so that the kid's fans can get to know the kid a little better, that pisses me off. Calling me an idiot. All I'm going to say to that windbag over there is that if you want to keep pushing me with your stupid little silly tricks in your editing, I'm going to become somebody that you will not like.
All right, I have a few things to say to all of that.
Yeah, he's muted, so you can go ahead.
The first thing is that
Two can play at that game.
I figured.
the first thing that
That's better.
is that although we did get approved to be on iTunes, and it did coincide with the first episode that the kid appeared on, the YouTube views were down. So I think you got to do something to improve that mask situation. I don't know if people were liking the visual side of things with you being on board. The second thing is that if you two can come and get along on this episode 2 of the podcast, because we've come a long way, then, kid, I'll let you pick the first match that we watch tonight. And Josh, you can direct the first segment of the podcast here. I'd like you to get a little Money in the Bank recap going.
Oh, it's awesome. Oh, it's so informative. Thank you.
You do not use my own tricks against me. I will fly 1,500 kilometers. I'll come over there, and I'll make you wear your Robin mask, the one you should be wearing, you fucking two-timing sidekick.
What about my proposal?
I'm happy now, by the way.
First match? Josh,
Yeah, he'll pick his bra and panties match, and I'll talk about wrestling. That's fine. It's what we always do.
All right, let's get it going then. Josh, let's start with a nice little recap of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view.
Absolutely. So we don't have much for news. We decided to scrap that. So what we're going to do is talk about the Money in the Bank that just happened. Now, We inadvertently, as you mentioned there, kid, we actually made a few predictions right. Now, we made the Otis prediction. Fantastic. That's awesome. You called Asuka. Also awesome. But there was one there that I was informed that I made. I didn't even remember making it, but apparently I said Ray was going to get thrown off the roof. He got thrown off the roof. So, now which prediction did you get right, kid? Oh, wait, none. All right. So, essentially, the overview for Money in the Bank 2020. It was on Sunday, May 10th, just passed, from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. But the main event ladder matches were actually pre-recorded April 15th from the Titan Towers in Stamford, Connecticut. The card was the 11th Money in the Bank promotion to happen. The card consisted of Jeff Hardy versus Cesaro. Now, that ended up being on the undercard, and we'll get into that because I think we're all pretty sour about that. The New Day versus The Miz and John Morrison, Lucha House Party, The Forgotten Sons for the tag team titles. The R-Truth versus MVP. We had Bayley versus Tamina, Braun versus Bray for the title, Drew versus Seth for the title, and then the two ladder matches, the main events, the men's and women's main events. So really quick, I'll just go over all the winners, and then we'll just discuss what we thought of the matches we want to talk about, if that's cool with you guys.
Yep, that works for me.
So on the undercard, we had Cesaro versus Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy ended up coming on top. He went over via pinfall.
In his return.
Yeah, it was a return. It was a huge return for Jeff Hardy. And I mean, Jeff Hardy's always been over, so it's kind of, again, one of the reasons I'm majorly sour about it being on the undercard to begin with.
Yeah.
Because there were worse matches. The New Day retained their title. Big E coming out on top for the finish. R-Truth didn't end up fighting MVP. What ended up happening is when he came out, they kind of went at each other on the mic a few times, and then Bobby Lashley came out for whatever reason, and then it turned into R-Truth versus Bobby Lashley. R-Truth ended up winning via disqualification because for one reason or another, Bobby Lashley decided to lose his cool and got himself disqualified. Again, didn't really make a whole lot of sense, being as what was on the line, what the stakes were during the event to get angry like that. But then we had Bayley retaining her title over Tamina with a little help from her sidekick, Sasha Banks. We had Braun retaining his title from Bray Wyatt. Interesting enough, it was Bray Wyatt, not The Fiend, that showed up. Drew retained his title over Seth Rollins. It was a pretty good match. I really liked it. And then something uncharacteristic afterwards that, Chris, you actually pointed out, where they shook hands at the end, which really wasn't really in Seth's heel repertoire. And then he went right back to being a heel afterwards. So the men's ladder match, Otis comes out on top for the win after a sudden interference from the one and only Elias. Woo! And Asuka won the women's title after beating the crap out of King Corbin, of all people. Didn't see that coming, but it went over really well, and it was really entertaining. I personally thought the event was good. I thought the main events were the best part. I thought some of the other, Tamina and Bayley, I thought Bayley ran that whole match. She looked great, but Tamina, unfortunately, to me, I think she looks like she's wrestling on two peg legs. She just doesn't look good to me. I don't think I've seen much out of her that's impressive. Not on the mic, not in the ring, technique-wise. It's just not there. Yeah. To me, anyways. R-Truth's match was pretty fun, in my opinion. I enjoyed that. Because he's always funny on the mic. I think the guy can wrestle. I think he's hilarious. And Bobby Lashley essentially was squashing him right up to the point he got out of the ring and disqualified himself. Drew and Seth, awesome match. Braun and Bray was off and on. I enjoyed it. And then the ladder matches, though, really stole the show. So what did you guys think?
The main event was by far the most entertaining thing of the night for me. I would say I probably enjoyed the Money in the Bank matches more than the rest of the show combined, honestly. I didn't hate the rest of the show, but I think you need to have Jeff Hardy's return match not on the pre-show. You could have put something else on the pre-show instead of that, or made time for it, because it wasn't a super long event. I agree with you that the Tamina Bayley match basically showcased how good Bayley is in the ring, because Tamina wasn't really doing much, but Bayley made it look like there was a lot going on. I think she's definitely one of the top few women in ring in the company. The tag match, I liked it, but I didn't love it. Seth Rollins and Drew, I think was a pretty solid match. I think they had a few good sequences in that. Again, not match of the year contender or anything, but I think they gelled together pretty well. And yeah, with the handshake at the end, it's interesting. Like Seth's shaking Drew's hand, but it's nowhere near a face turn. He was just basically like Drew was just showing his dominance on him to being able to get the handshake out of him there. So I do kind of like how they handled the finish. Drew's just looking really strong, like looking like a top guy now, which is awesome. The main event, I loved it. I mean, like you said, we kind of made the podcast pick for the men's match to be Otis, and Asuka was my pick for the women's. So I think Asuka was a big bright spot of the women's match. The little spot where she was up on the balcony of the next floor and went up, jumped on all the women. That was pretty cool. I liked the feel of the match. You had some really good camera work, kind of like a Lucha Underground feel in some cases, where it has a little bit of a unique perspective that it's shot in. But yeah, in terms of the winners, I can talk all day about Asuka and Otis, but I'd like the kid to chime in a little bit, because I know you at least tuned in for the main event. I know you're more of an AEW guy, but you did watch the Money in the Bank match. So what did you think?
Busy posting bail.
Sorry, are you done?
Oh, I haven't started. Do you want me to, or do you want to say your bit?
No, let the kid talk to his fans, please. Stop
please,
talking.
top child.
All right. So, yeah, I did check out the main event at least. Admittedly, I don't keep up with WWE too much. I said that, it was trash or whatever I said in the last episode. It's not that I don't love the nostalgia of it, but it's just currently I don't know. I find it very predictable. I don't, even if I can tune in and watch like a Raw and I already know what's going to happen and I haven't even tuned in and I don't know any of the characters or anything, something's wrong. And also, it sounds like from what Josh was saying there, with the Bobby Lashley stuff, it sounds like things are just happening at random. It's almost they don't even know what it is that they're doing, So you shouldn't, as a wrestling fan, you shouldn't have to try to piece together what's going on, right? But anyway, that's my WWE rant.
You're right, though. You're right. I mean, the reality is Bobby Lashley is in this match to prove himself. And he throws it. He gets disqualified and he gets angry for no reason at all. He had no prior heat with Truth that I'm aware of. There was no reason for him to go off like that, especially when he's trying to prove that he deserved to be in the ladder match to begin with, and then he gets himself disqualified. I think you're right. I think it looks like that the WWE doesn't know what they're going for long term, so they make these long or short term changes, and it shows.
Yeah, whereas when you look at AEW, right? Even the littlest matches make sense. There is some sort of little bit of history there for the matchup to make sense, right? So
yeah.
Anyway, I got off topic there. My bad. But the main event was actually awesome. It's good to see WWE had some really good goofy bits in there too, right? Which is classic what they've always been really good at, not taking things too seriously. The Vince McMahon cameo there with I think it was Ray and AJ. And
AJ.
Yeah, and he sanitized his hands right after, and that was funny. But like you said, Chris, everything was well shot. From the moment Asuka jumped off the second level of the lobby there onto the girls, that was sick.
Yeah.
And then the guys starting off in the gym, and they were using the environment to their advantage, and they're having fun with it. And I think for them, I would definitely start watching again if they let, the wrestlers actually have a say, right? You can tell that everything's just so scripted. But anyway, it worked for that match. The filming was great. And I love the finishes too. Otis is, even I know who Otis is. He's hilarious. You know, so, and Asuka, I don't know too much about her, but I love that she's like, she's Japanese, right?
Yep.
Yes, she's like going off on everybody in Japanese, but then like her broken English to get her point across. So she's so over the top. Like, it's awesome.
I can't really say enough about Asuka, honestly. Like, she's been one of my favorites in the women's division for years now. And she has always been one of the best in the ring, for sure. And she just didn't have the mic skills because she didn't speak much English. But now she kind of even has that despite not knowing much English. And the thing with her is, though, she is so good at facial expressions and body language that she doesn't even need to necessarily be able to speak a lot of English to be able to get across to the audience.
Well, you know exactly what she's trying to do. It's the storytelling she tells with, like you were saying, her body language, you know, her enthusiasm, her surprise. It's really, really well done. I don't think she needs to speak a word of English to be successful.
Yeah, for sure. She just has the personality, and it's very apparent, and that shines through. I think she was a great pick to win the match. Of course, I think she was my prediction for that anyway. So before I even knew that would make her champion, which is a whole other discussion point. But I was kind of thinking she would be a good heel Money in the Bank holder. But I feel like she's kind of just turned face through all this because she's been so damn entertaining. There was no official turn, but she's just gotten to the point where she's so likable that I feel like she'll just be a face now, especially because she's champ. Because as Becky came out on Raw and announced that she's pregnant, which is crazy news for someone who was champion for over a year now, beat Ronda Rousey 2 WrestleManias ago, and has been one of the biggest stars in the company lately. She was just kind of forgotten about for a while, but had that little false heel turn, and then just all of a sudden became the biggest star in the women's division, which, you know, I really like. They'll miss Becky for sure. There's a lot of other talented women that will be able to make up for it, but I think like having her kind of propelled to the top, they'll definitely be a void to fill with her gone for a while.
Yeah, I want to touch on something, Kid, that you actually like. You know, you mentioned the bits that were in the ladder match, and you mentioned Vince McMahon, but there was another big one there, and I want to talk about it. The AJ Styles going in and seeing that coffin. You know, seeing Taker's picture. You know, to me, I'm thinking they're setting up a rematch, and I can't wait. What do you guys think?
I liked it. I think just the fact that, like AJ's kind of still like haunted or spooked by the Undertaker. I just like that. I just like any kind of continuation like that, any kind of like callback, even though WrestleMania wasn't that long ago. Just the fact that like, AJ's back after he got buried alive, but just this. I think that was Aleister Black's room that he ended up going into, but it just reminded him so much of Taker that he was just like, ooh, like I love that little touch. I think that was just very nice addition to the match.
Do you see a rematch down the road now? Because like what I'm thinking is they're leading into the fact that this is still in AJ's head and he's not getting over it. And you know, traditionally the only way to beat your fears is to face them. Do you guys think that they're working up towards another AJ Taker match, like a rematch, and then possibly a rubber match down the line? Or do you guys think that was a one-off and then they were just doing this bit as a callback and then that's it?
I hadn't thought of it like that, but it makes complete sense. I could definitely see if they're kind of making a point to continue it a little bit, that they might have a rematch. Maybe Styles is the one Taker puts over in his last match. I know he's kind of looking for that perfect last opponent. I don't know if he would be it, but you're right. I mean, maybe they wouldn't be touching on it to that extent if they weren't planning maybe a rematch next WrestleMania, SummerSlam, whenever that is. Who knows?
Kid?
Yeah, no, I think they're, you know, they know what they're doing. They're teasing it. So I don't know what the timing of that would be, because I don't know what Taker's schedule is like. I know he's getting older now. If he's saving himself for just WrestleManias or, but I mean, they could keep that going subtly throughout the year if they're going to do the rematch at the next WrestleMania. But no, I liked it too. Their match was awesome. You know, it's nice that I am familiar with AJ Styles, so I can really appreciate, you know, what it is that they did and accomplished. Because AJ's the man, like he's so good, and he's been good for a while.
He's good everywhere. Yeah, and it's crazy to see him now, not even just in WWE, but pretty much at the top. Like we're damn near close to it. It's really awesome to see how far he's come after his long career. To even be at the level of being worthy of an Undertaker or WrestleMania match is awesome.
Yeah, did they explain like how he became not buried alive, or did he just show up one day?
He just showed up in the Money in the Bank Gauntlet qualifier match on Raw.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, you can't. There's no. They've lost the storytelling. It sounds like I only know what you guys tell me, and it just sounds like they're not thinking about or connecting the dots. They know the dots where they are, and they don't connect them.
I'm giving them a little bit of time to explain the AJ thing, and here's why. Because they're going out of their way to showing that it fucked him up. They're going out of their way to showing that what happened is playing on his head, and they're reliving him being buried alive and things. So they're not just throwing it in the past. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a couple weeks for them to give AJ a spot or a segment where he actually explains how he got out. Because I agree with you. If they don't address that, it's bullshit. But to this point, what we've seen is he made a return. He didn't really do a spot. He just made a return, won the gauntlet. And then now we've seen him in Money in the Bank. However, we haven't really had a chance or an opportunity for anyone to ask him how he got out of that or for him to address it. So I agree. I think if it's not addressed, it's a complete it's an injustice to the storyline that they're trying to tell. But I'm going to give them a little bit of time. I'm going to give them a couple weeks to see if a segment comes and that gets answered, because they may plan to answer it or they may plan to throw it under the rug like you suggest. And I do think, I hope they don't throw it under the rug. I hope, they explain. But we've seen it in the past. I mean, guys, every single time there's a buried alive match, eventually the guy returns. And very rarely do they actually explain how he got out of it. They always come back. Like even Paul Bearer. I mean, even he showed up again after he was buried alive. So it wouldn't be unbelievable to think they're just going to leave it and will never be addressed because they've done it in the past. However, I'd like to think that for continuity's sake, they're going to do something, but I'm waiting to see.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and that's as much props as I'm going to give you here for this episode. So
thanks, kid. You're a professional, idiot.
Yeah.
I agree with you there too. I think they have something that they should continue to work with. But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and see where they go, because the rematch might not be close. It might be down the road. So I'm willing to see maybe, they go for a while without hinting at it, but maybe down the road they pick it back up. So we'll see. But either way, I do really like what I've seen out of AJ, for most of his time in WWE. Him in the finish, him just about being able to get the Money in the Bank briefcase was pretty perfect. He was just, it slipped out of his hands, and then you had Elias hitting King Corbin, and then Otis just grabbing the briefcase. And I know Josh is a huge fan of Elias, and we're all huge fans of Otis. Just seeing Elias with the assist and Otis grabbing the briefcase, I was like, holy crap, Josh freaked out.
Yeah.
Awesome. I loved the finish. The finish was fantastic, and I didn't see it coming. I knew Otis was at the bottom. No idea Elias is even in the building. I thought that was it. I thought it was Corbin's up there. Asuka dummied him pretty good, so that made him look a bit weak. But however, he's going to win. That's what I thought. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, guitar, and then the good old heavy machinery at the bottom, ready to catch it. Loved it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I kind of took issue with was AJ has gloves on, and his gloves are I'm thinking, I don't know what their material is but if they're anywhere football gloves, the sticky part of his inner palm, there should be some stick there, so I imagine that's what he does with the ropes, so having him have the gloves and then drop out of his hands while this fat sweaty man catches it, no problem. I was just kind of
He was
maybe, but
from the Undertaker.
Let me pose this to you though. Football players wear the same thing, and they're catching a football which has pores on it to help them catch, and they still drop that shit. Now you try to use that glove on stainless steel that may or may not have sweat on it. It's probably going to slide right out like it's nothing. human hands, if they're not sweaty, are pretty grippy. So I don't find it. And the fact is, he didn't catch it just like with his hands like this. He hugged it into his body. So I don't have an issue with the way it was done. And I have no issue with AJ's glove slipping and sliding at all.
Yeah, you would.
So that kind of brings a good segue to my next question for you guys, because I think it is an interesting point, is now that Otis is Mr. Money in the Bank, I mean, Heavy Machinery didn't even win the tag team titles yet. It's honestly, as much as I love Otis, it is weird to picture him with the top title. Do you guys think he uses it in a weird way to cash in on the tag team titles? Do you think he puts it on the line to defend Mandy's honor against someone else and they end up winning? Do you think there's some result here other than Otis being World Heavyweight Champion in the end, which I think is very, very possible?
Well, I don't think they're so. Can they can technically use the Money in the Bank briefcase for any title shot, right? Or is it specifically
established that you could, but it's always ever only used for the top title. But you know, it's WWE. They're fine with just, you know, rewriting history and saying that's not how it works anymore.
That would be, you know, what a waste, right? Like, you win that and you get a shot for the main title. Like, why would you not take that shot? Like, if you're in a tag team, that's great, but you know, you can earn a tag team shot without having to cash that in. Like, I don't know. I feel like that would be kind of dumb.
You can earn a title shot, a heavyweight title shot, without having to cash that in. That's besides the point. Maybe his goals are to be a tag team champion, and it's not to be a singles champion.
Right, and the only reason I bring these possibilities up as scenarios is just because I love Otis, and maybe he's going to be world heavyweight champ within the next year. Who knows? I just think there's other possible endings to this story than him being the world champ as his first title in the whole company. You know, it's kind of unheard of for a guy.
I don't think he's going to win. So, like, I really never thought of this at all about using it for a different title personally, but I don't know. Maybe he uses that. However, even if he cashes in the title, I don't see him getting the title in the next year, or the briefcase. I don't see him getting the title in the next year. I just don't see him beating the guys who are currently champions. So unless there's some dirty trickery done where the title changes over before he cashes in the briefcase, I don't think, like, I think he'll cash it on one of the main titles, but I don't think he'll win. I think you know, I just don't see him beating Braun yet, and I don't see him beating Drew either right now. I mean, those guys are the top guys, and I'm a huge fan of Drew, but I mean, when you look at them next to Otis, I just don't see him beating anybody alone right now. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned, like, maybe he cashes in for tag team. Maybe. I could see that happening, absolutely, if WWE is willing to entertain that. But I don't see him winning the title at least in the next 6 months. I do not see it happening.
Right, and there have been situations where, like Mr. Kennedy won Money in the Bank, but then he got into a fight with Edge, and he ended up putting it on the line in a match with Edge, and then Edge won it, and he ended up cashing in for the second time. So there is the possibility of it's on the line in a match somewhere along the way, like AJ and Otis have a match, because AJ thinks, oh, I actually was holding it for a second, I should be the winner, so let's, you know, down the line have a match with the briefcase on the line, and then AJ wins it from him like that. It's possible. I'm just thinking of other scenarios here that could happen.
Well, it makes sense when you think about Ibushi with the G1, like, leading up to Wrestle Kingdom. You know, you win the G1, you get your shot at the title at Wrestle Kingdom, and he had to defend that right in order to do that.
Yep.
It makes sense that the Money in the Bank contract be on the line. It's almost like it's not a title, obviously, but, you know, it's up for grabs. You can put it on the line, but I don't think I think storyline wise, like, I think it would be kind of silly to cash it in on a tag title. Like, I think if he went to go, like, cash it in on the main championship, if you win it, right? Like, think about storyline wise, like, how many world champs have tagged up with somebody to become dual champ, you know? Like Edge and Benoit, which we'll talk about actually a little later, because since I get to choose the match, I know what I'm choosing.
Okay. You have my attention. You have my attention.
Well, but anyway.
He's a monster. I mean, I'm down with watching a Benoit match, but you're gonna pick a fucking. Ugh.
You would jump down my throat about that. You don't even know, dude.
I'm just fucking with you. I'm down with whatever you pick. I like wrestling.
Did you watch the last episode? Do you know what match I put forth?
I'm not even sure who you are.
That's probably
all right, guys. All right, pipe down. Right. So I think we've covered the men's match quite a bit. Is there anything more in terms of your guys' thoughts with the women's? Just the fact that Asuka's champ now. I hope she gets a lengthy reign. I think I wouldn't hate if she had a close to a year-long reign. I think she can put on solid matches with just about anybody on the roster. I would like to see her just with like 6 successful defenses, solid matches throughout, being entertaining throughout. I think that they will miss Becky. I think she's probably the best on the mic in terms of the women, one of the best in the company, at least way up there. But what do you guys think? Do you have any more thoughts on kind of Asuka as champ or anything like that? Or if not, we can kind of move it on.
Well, I don't have anything to add because I don't know the roster, so I can't really comment on anything. So sorry.
Okay.
So for the women's match, there weren't as many like crazy spots to talk about, and like the Taker thing and then the Vince McMahon thing. So yeah. I do think the match fell a little short in that. I think the writers could have done a better job of letting, putting in a few more funny spots for the women too. Whereas there were funny spots, but it was almost exclusively Asuka, which is good. She did amazing. Her spots were hilarious. But what I think the women's match did really well was even running through like the event and crossing over with the men's match, and you could see the mishmash of everything going on. The women's match always stayed pretty much a brawl. Like the whole time they were fighting. Whereas with the men's match, there was a few times where they were just kind of staring at each other, or they were just walking together and shit. And you really didn't get the feeling all the time that the men were battling, were fighting the whole time. Not only fighting, but the goal was to get to the roof where the title was. And there was a few times where it seemed like the guys were just content to stay on the floor and wrestle for a while on whatever level they were on. Whereas, you had Lacey Evans, Asuka, they were fucking running for the roof any chance they got. And I thought that told a way more realistic story in the sense that, yeah, it's a wrestling match. Yes, we're in the gym right now, but this isn't where the contest ends. It's upstairs. So fuck you guys. I'm making a run for it. And that's what Asuka did. And I thought the women did a much better job of making a real match out of it, in the sense that, like, this isn't about the wrestling until we get to the roof. That's where the match happens. Yeah, when we intersect each other, there's going to be a fight. But we don't need to stay here. I mean, you had Corbin pinning, I think it was Corbin pinning down Ray with weights. Okay, but while you're pinning him down with those weights, the other guys could be fucking taken off upstairs. The women didn't do that, and I think that was way better. I thought their match was a little more technical. Less of sideshow. I enjoyed the sideshow of the men's match. However, I also very much enjoyed the more realism of the women's match.
Just a couple of things there. It was Otis that pinned AJ down with the weights. And I do agree with what you're saying. Like, there was a lot more gags on the men's side of things, and they were fighting a lot more. Whereas with the women's, it was almost like more like a rat race. Like, Asuka just went right for the elevator. It's like, okay, we need to get to the top. Okay, I'm in the fucking elevator. The only other thing about that kind of goes against that is fucking Dana Brooke getting like the fake Money in the Bank from the conference room, and like Stephanie coming in. It's like the real one's on the roof, and it's like, wait, she wasn't paying attention when they advertised this every week on Raw for like the last month.
It's true. All right, I'm not saying it's perfect.
Yeah, I know.
And I forgot about that, so that's a good point. I can't defend that. If you're fighting for a title, you should probably know the stipulations of the match.
Yeah, I think so. But I guess I get that it was done for the lulls, but it was just kind of funny because it made her look a little stupid. Nevertheless, thoroughly entertaining match. Very much
on both sides, the men and women's match, they were both awesome. In fact, they should have just made that the whole event.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been down with that. But yeah, if you guys are down, I'd like to start us into the new segment.
You just made the list!
See, I even got a little soundbite for it this time. The list segment. We're gonna
have to pay Jericho for that.
5 seconds per use, so we got to
I don't have any money.
We can just invite him on and have him like just tear us up. Jericho.
We'll be like, will you come on our show? We have the kid. He'll be like, what kid?
I'm into the bubbly. I'm into the bubbly.
The 1, 2, 3 kid? It's like, no, just the kid.
That guy beat Scott Hall that time.
He wishes. All right, so
Confirm or deny.
the list. This week's top 3 is going to be top 3 tag teams. And I'm going to get the kid to start us off.
All right. Oh my God. As much as I would love to be like hipster about it and like choose like a bunch of different tag teams from a bunch of different like times, I got to go with Edge and Christian, the Hardys, and the Dudleys. I can't, there's so many, right? But like those 3 are just so iconic, and they had so many matches together. The TLCs, obviously, but then even just like, competing against each other, like, Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys, or insert the Hardys, and you know what I mean? Like all their matches that they ever did together were so good and innovative. So yeah, I got to go with those 3 teams. I can't talk about any others.
Nice. I mean, I can't really blame you for just picking those 3. I mean,
if we are going to do an honorable mention,
go for it.
I would probably say probably Angle and Benoit too.
Yeah, there's a lot of like makeshift tag teams you could consider for this. Like Edge and Rey Mysterio were an awesome tag team. You don't even think about them. But yeah, there's a lot of ones you could throw out. What about you, Josh? What are your top 3? And if you want to throw in an honorable mention, then go for it.
My honorable mention is more or less my number 3. So, sorry, my number 2. I'm gonna go for number 3. I'm gonna go with the Hart Foundation, mostly just as Canadian boy. We all know Bret Hart on his own, but Jim the Anvil Neidhart, really, he did singles stuff, but we really don't know him for that. But most of us know who he is. So for that reason, I'm giving them the number 3 spot. They were a really good tag team. I like the mix of the technical prowess of Bret Hart and then just the pure tank of Jim. So they're my number 3. Number 2 is my honorable mention because it's more of a 3-way tie. I mean, when I look back at my experience with tag team, just like the kid, I mean, you got to think Edge and Christian. You got to think Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy. You got to think the Dudley Boys. They revolutionized what the tag team division did. I mean, they you never thought you could do with tables, ladders, and chairs what those guys showed you could do. So I'm only going to pick one because it's a list. So I'm going with the Hardy Boys. However, the Dudley Boys and the Edge and Christian, I could have changed up any of those guys. They were all so good. But I'm going with the Hardy Boys for the reason that they're really only known. I mean, they both have outstanding careers as singles. But when you think about them, you think of them together. I mean, they're both still wrestling. And they're both upper, mid to high, like to top card guys right now. But when you think of them, it's still as a tag team. Whereas Edge, you think about Edge. I mean, yes, Edge and Christian's huge, absolutely huge. But you can think of Edge alone. He's a rated R superstar. He fuck Lita. Like, there's lots of shit. Dudley Boys, they're really only known as a tag team, but they only have the one spot. They have the table gimmick, and they put on amazing matches with it. But then they went to TNA. They became a new thing, and then so they're great. They're amazing, and they're almost tied. But I got to give it to Hardy Boys. I think they just put in a little more effort. I thought their spots were a little bigger. I really enjoy them. So that's my number 2. I'm going with Hardy Boys. Number 1, I'm going with the Legion of Doom. For this reason. They literally, like, I can't think of any time that they were ever successful not being in a tag team. Ever. I don't know them from doing singles matches, and I know that when Hawk died, they tried to bring back the Legion of Doom with Heidenreich and Animal. and it just flopped face first. And to me, that shows how important the two were together, and that apart they just didn't work. But in their time, they were a staple. They were the top of the tag team divisions. They were the champions. They were crushing guys. They had that sick finisher from the top rope. They're just, to me, they're what the tag team division is. They don't do as well on their own, but it's okay because they absolutely decimated the division they decided to be in. So those are my picks. I got to go number 1, Legion of Doom. Number 2, the Hardy Boys / Edge and Christian / the Dudley Boys, and then number 3, Hart Foundation.
Nice. Very good picks. I think, the Legion of Doom, especially like from just a historical perspective alone, I mean, their run was amazing. I mean, you could probably argue they could be the greatest of all time. For me, I have the Hardys in there too. I didn't do mine in any kind of particular order, but I picked the Hardys first. For some of the same reasons you mentioned, Josh. The fact that they both had strong singles careers, but you still think of them mostly together. But also just the fact that they were I liked them when I was a kid. So that even though now I kind of feel like I like them equally to Edge and Christian, as a kid I much preferred the Hardys. I didn't even like Edge and Christian until later years. I didn't even like Edge on his own because I knew wrestling was fake, but I still fucking hated Edge as a heel. I was just you're a fucking dick.
He was a piece of shit.
Yeah, so it was far past me thinking wrestling was real, but Edge still got under my skin to the point where I didn't like him at first. It took me a little while to appreciate him as a heel. Yeah, so the Hardys got that first slot. They just edged it out because of I've liked them during my childhood, and I still like them now. They've been my favorite or one of my favorites the whole way through. The second I picked was Rock and Sock. Just because, so many good segments between the two, and just the way they played off each other, as you couldn't have two more different people in the tag team. And I think in the grand scheme of things, they were pretty short-lived, but the fact that there's so many highlights from them and so many memorable clips in the short period they were together, I think that is a kind of a testament to how memorable they were and how well they worked off one another. And third, I actually put the Brothers of Destruction, and this is another one that was kind of more I had a childhood reason for doing this, because when I was first only occasionally watching WWF at my cousin's house the odd time, I remember watching an episode with him, and it was I don't know if it was the first time Undertaker and Kane teamed up, but I think one of them made the save for the other, and they had an impromptu tag team match where it was Undertaker and Kane against, I can't even remember who they were facing, but just the fact that it was such a big deal that, these two were finally teaming up after all their history, and the fact that I just remember that, as one of my earliest memories watching wrestling as a kid, I had to just put them there as my number 3. Honorable mention, I mean, there's probably too many. I don't even know if I'm gonna pick an honorable mention really here. For a modern mention, I mean, I do feel like New Day is kind of the top tag team of the modern era. I think they're extremely entertaining, and definitely as cringy as WWE is sometimes nowadays, I do feel like they're a consistent bright spot. They're very entertaining.
Right behind Kenny Omega and the Hangman.
Well, I was just gonna say, you think them over the Young Bucks or Pentagon Jr. and Ray Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of start thinking outside WWE, it definitely opens the doors. I don't know if I could. Yeah, the Lucha Bros. The more I think about it, the Lucha Bros would probably take that spot. I think I prefer them to the Young Bucks by a little bit, but two also amazing tag teams. AEW's tag team division is stacked. I love a lot of those teams.
Yeah, and I think you could easily have slotted them in there too, but the fact that they're still doing their thing right now, they're still writing their story, so they will be totally iconic and when they're done. But right now, whoa, they're kind of rewriting the book actually. Their tag matches that they put together are just absolutely crazy.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It's been nothing but thoroughly entertaining tag matches in AEW for the most part.
Throw in Best Friends there too. Their match here on the last episode of Dynamite Like,
Yeah.
whoa, like fucking Chuck's pile driver at the end there. I lost my shit. Like he picked him up like he was going to do like a torture rack kind of thing, but then he brought him forward and just drove him down. Like it was such a weird angled pile driver. Like that was amazing. Like he's got to do that always. That's his finisher. Absolutely.
Yeah, it looked great. And I think maybe after this match, we'll actually get into a little bit of a AEW discussion, maybe just a really quick series of predictions for the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. But for now, I think it's as good a time as any to probably start your match of choice here, kid. We can start watching some wrestling.
All right. So last week I put forward the match of Edge versus Mick Foley. I'm sure that we've seen this, but Josh had a little too much to drink, it appears.
Sorry.
Sorry. Are you okay, buddy?
Yeah, I just had some bat shit in my mouth.
Oh, why are you eating bat shit?
It was thrown at me.
Oh, well, you got to talk to them. That's not nice. So anyway, I put forward Edge and Mick Foley. So admittedly, I am an Edge fanboy. He is definitely in my top 5. And I've loved him ever since the Edge and Christian days. They were so goofy together and hilarious. Their kazoo playing is definitely one of my favorite memories. But when I was starting to kind of look into the lead up of the match to try to fill in some of the storyline, I was thinking about Edge recently trying to come back here from retirement, and I thought that it would be good to kind of do a career retrospective of Edge because his career is just phenomenal. Like the longevity of it and all the things that have happened throughout his career to get him over to the degree that he is now. It is worth just, I think, paying him a little bit of tribute. And he's way better than DDP. So, we can spend some time, talking about an actually amazing wrestler.
Let's see him lift his foot above his head.
Fair enough. If you guys are good with that, I would love to kind of recap a little bit of Edge's career. I'm not going to go in depth about everything. I'm just going to go over some career highlights, when it all started, and just basically fill in the blanks up until their match at Mania between Edge and Mick Foley, because it makes sense in terms of thinking about his heel turn, because this was kind of at the end of the culmination of his rated R superstar gimmick until he kept it going further with the Vicky Guerrero stuff and all that. So Edge's career, it actually started in 1998. And I did find a fun fact about Edge is he actually beat Vader in Vader's last match. So if you know who Vader is, that's a huge deal because Vader was huge in New Japan and even in the WWF in the late 90s there. So that was his early start, but he mainly started getting featured on television as a part of the Brood with Gangrel and Christian. And they eventually had that dark ministry kind of stuff with the Undertaker situation there. But, like I said, I'm not going to go over everything of his career, just his highlights. And then we, of course, have Edge and Christian's run in the early 2000s. And we just talked about top 3 tag teams. So that's mainly why I made that pick that I did, right? Those iconic matches with the Dudley Boys and Hardy Boys, they're going to stand the test of time. So, that was a great run there. And then him and Christian eventually broke up, and then Edge actually had a pretty good singles span of his career in the early 2000s. So in 2001, he had a really notable feud with Kurt Angle. He actually beat him in the finals of the King of the Ring tournament in 2001 to become the King of the Ring winner. And then from there, that feud started going even further because Edge did start the "You Suck" chant. That's famous with Angle's entrance now. And they even had a match at Judgment Day where the loser got their head shaved. And that was a big deal because Edge at WrestleMania 18 had a match with Booker T over a shampoo contract in Japan. So the stakes were high for Edge there. He also, during this time, so we're talking right now from 2001 to 2003-ish, he was tag champs with Hogan. And if anybody knows anything about Edge's story in the business, he idolized Hogan. He was there for one of the WrestleManias at the Sky Dome. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. But he got the opportunity to be a tag champ with Hogan during Hogan's run there in 2002. And then later on in that year, he did team up with Rey Mysterio, and he had a series of matches between Angle and Benoit, which were really highly regarded. And maybe at some point we could throw one of those on later on, so add it to the list maybe. But a big turning point in Edge's career was when he broke his neck. And at the time, it was hard for Edge to figure out what exactly the cause was for that injury. But looking back in an interview, he said that he thinks it started to begin, and the injury initially occurred in May 2002 against he had a match with Eddie Guerrero. And what happened was Edge took a bump he fell onto a ladder, which he thinks initially, caused like a minor injury. But then he did later on in the match take a big bump with a sunset flip power bomb off the ladder. So his theory was that after the bump on the ladder and then taking that power bomb, that's when he really did, injure something in his neck. But, being the tough Canadian boy he is, he didn't really think too much of it. He actually wrestled through the injury up until around February 2003, where he states in multiple interviews that he had a hard time lifting any weight whatsoever with one of his arms. So that's how he knew that something was really wrong. So he did end up going to the doctor, and they found out that he had 2 herniated discs along with a bone spur on a 3rd disc in his spine. And those 2 herniated discs were actually causing pressure on his spinal cord, which was causing some miscommunication there with his nerves. So that's why he wasn't able to, feel anything in his arms for the most bit. And being the true professional that he is, he did decide to undergo the surgery because his greatest fear was that he would put his fellow wrestlers at risk for potentially injuring them because he couldn't lift them. So he went and got the surgery. It took about over a year for him to come back. He eventually came back after WrestleMania 20, March 2004, during the draft lottery that they were doing to mix up the rosters after Mania 20. And he came back on and he speared Eric Bischoff, who was then the GM of Raw at the time. So that was a good, reminder of Edge and the things that he can do. He went on to feud with Orton for the IC title and had a little bit of a connection with Evolution at the time because Triple H was the main heel holding a lot of the World Heavyweight Championship title runs during that time. But he did begin to turn heel during Taboo Tuesday, in 2004. What happened there was a fan vote to determine who would get a shot at Triple H's World Heavyweight title. And Edge lost that vote to Shawn Michaels. Benoit was also in the mix for the voting there, but Shawn Michaels ended up winning to get a shot at Triple H's title. And then Edge and Benoit actually went on to get a tag team title shot at the same event, and they ended up winning that match thanks to Benoit because Edge abandoned Benoit during the match to later appear in the World Heavyweight Championship match between Michaels and Triple H to cost Michaels the match. So that was the hinting of his heel turn. And then on the following Raw, he did complete his heel turn by turning on Benoit and costing them their tag team championship belts. So at this point, Edge was full heel. From there, he did go on to win Money in the Bank at WrestleMania 21. He was the first winner of that. And then he went on to feud with Kane, who at the time, Kane was having this really weird forced marriage and forced pregnancy angle with Lita. I'm sure the WWE is probably not too proud of that angle now, and it was kind of weird. If anybody remembers Gene Snitsky, that's when he was involved, and he punted that fake baby. But anyway, he did end up having a match with Kane to determine getting a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship match, and that's when Lita actually decided to turn on Kane, cost Kane the match, and Edge got his first shot at the Heavyweight Championship without having to cash in his Money in the Bank thanks to Lita. He did end up winning that match, but from there, he went on to feud with Matt Hardy, that famous feud where they actually shot themselves into a work. So I won't go into any more details about that because it's so famous and iconic. And from there, that's when he started to really pick up momentum with his Rated R Superstar gimmick, having that real life pour over into the wrestling world. And then from there, after his Rated R Superstar gimmick was established, he finally cashed in his Money in the Bank contract during the event New Year's Revolution, and beat Cena after he had just went through the Elimination Chamber to retain his championship. So Edge won his first WWE championship by cashing in that contract, beat Cena. And then from there, he went on to have the iconic live sex celebration, which was ending up being ruined by Cena. And then that set up their rematch for the title at Royal Rumble, which Cena ended up beating him at the Royal Rumble. But on the following Raw, there was a rematch for the title between Edge and Cena, but Mick Foley was serving as the special referee. So actually, Edge lost that match clean, but Edge attacked Foley after the match and blamed him for the loss because of basically, saying that Foley had shitty reffing skills. So basically, the match was set from there for Mania 22, and Foley, he was motivated to kind of go out in a bang. He wanted to basically find his WrestleMania moment. He said storyline-wise that he felt like that he didn't have that moment. So he proposed that they do a hardcore match at WrestleMania 22 so that he could get his opportunity to have that iconic moment. And then on the following week's Raw, Edge blindsided him and responded to Foley by giving him a concerto and said that he accepted. And then from there to the lead up of the match, Foley started to become more aggressive and violent, kind of tapping into his Cactus Jack demeanor, and said that he would stop at nothing to beat Edge. He wants him bloody and beat up, and he wants to, quote, tear the flesh off of his body. So that is the lead into this match. It is a brutal, brutal match. But I hope you guys are pumped for it because it's been quite some time since I've seen it.
Cool. All right. Let's get it started. All right. Edge Foley at WrestleMania 22. Here we go.
Yeah, turn it up a bit for his entrance.
On this day, I seek. You know what pisses me off the most about his entrance is nobody in the world likes fucking Creed, but everybody likes Alter Bridge, which is just Creed without one dude.
Yeah, it's true. They have so much more credibility, and then they're almost the exact
songwriters,
same.
same everything. It's the songs are the same. It's just a different guy singing it, and everyone's all over it. Everyone hates Creed though.
Yeah, the singer's that much of an asshole that changes everything.
One of the things I loved about this match is that Edge and Foley made it look so they wanted to get a hold of each other. They wanted to beat the shit out of each other.
Very excited to watch this. I mean, yeah, it's just one. I started watching wrestling again like a bit before Mania 23, so I missed this just by a little bit. But I know it's just one of the more brutal matches, at least in modern WWE, for sure. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I'll be interested to see if this is as brutal as every match since then. I don't know if they've topped this since, especially since they entered the PG era, only a few years later.
Is Mick Foley heavier than he usually is, or is he just wearing all of his gimmick shirts at one time?
Maybe a little bit of both. I saw a TNA sucks sign.
Oh God, has TNA been around that long? Elbow drop to the fucking skull. Which is the bigger reveal? That Mr. America is Hulk Hogan, or that Cactus Jack is Mick Foley?
I don't even know if you could... Oh, brutal. I don't even know if you could pick one.
They're both the biggest reveals. I know I shit my pants when I found out that Mick Foley was not only Dude Love, but also Mankind and Cactus Jack.
The man of many personalities.
And somehow still had time to write all those books.
Yeah, he has some of the most well-regarded wrestling books.
Yeah, well, he's really well respected by almost every wrestler.
Yeah. What's he got, some pliers?
He's gonna circumcise Edge. What's he doing? He's cutting something off himself. Oh, barbed wire around his waist. Dude, he started the match with barbed wire around his waist? He already got speared once.
Yeah, so Edge speared barbed wire.
Oh fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta believe that, this match probably not only put Edge over in terms of, the fans, but probably gave a lot of the guys in the back a lot of respect for Edge. The fact that he was willing to go, toe-to-toe with Mick Foley in a hardcore match and be able to take all that. I think he probably gained a lot of respect from the old dudes in the locker room after this. It's like when you see Foley take bumps, he's like... throws himself at the stairs, but most sane people are going to throw themselves at the stairs so their back is completely flat on it and try to make it look painful but be safe. Whereas Mick, he's just like throwing himself on the edge of the stairs, just like making it absolutely brutal.
I think Mick Foley did so well at selling moves because I don't think he ever actually learned to take a bump. I think he was just like, fuck it, I'll do it.
100% shoot at all times.
Yeah. Just all looks so brutal, but he just gets up every time.
Yeah.
Ooh, brutal. I was to the face always.
Oh man. He took that barbed wire bat right to the face and it clipped him naturally.
Yeah. I would definitely say that I don't know if there's any WWE match that's happened after this that was this brutal. I think this might be kind of marks the end of an era for hardcore.
I don't know. Tamina's match with Bayley was probably more brutal than this.
In a different way.
I'm gonna get a picture of this.
Look how bloody he is.
Oh,
those kids.
Oh, he's definitely blinded right now.
Yeah.
There was blood in his eye.
Yeah.
That kid's like, whoa, he's messed up.
Dude, Edge looks like some sort of monster from a sci-fi movie right now. There's so much blood on his face. It's in his eyes. His whole eyes turn red. That's insane.
Yeah, he looks like a movie villain. I can totally see why this match helped propel Edge to the next level.
That was the moment that Foley wanted, basically, right there. Going through the flaming table.
All right, so that was a finish of Foley and Edge. As someone who hadn't seen the match before, I was definitely thoroughly entertained. It was a pretty brutal match. One of the more brutal matches probably in the modern era of WWE. I can totally see why this took Edge to the next level. Just the image at the end there of him looking defeated, but looking just like a total like big time villain. I think this was definitely a great match to propel Edge to the next level. It was a match I knew happened, knew the result of it going in, but it was great to just experience that and kind of get a little bit of a hardcore feel for these podcast matches. Probably the most violent match we've watched so far. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I agree. I can't believe I haven't seen it, so I want to believe I've already seen it, but I didn't remember any of that. And I mean, there was some huge spots in there. There was a lot of blood. Getting speared through the flaming table was awesome. And then the shot of Edge with blood just rolling down his face, but it's in his eye and it turned his whole eye red too. But he's keeping the eye open. It looked mangled. It looked awful. I thought that match was awesome. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed. So what are your final thoughts, kid, on this one? I appreciate you showing us this match. It was a good pick.
Yeah, no problem at all. This match was, definitely one of my favorite matches. I remember watching it because this was peak when I was watching. I stopped watching WWE probably a little shortly after this Mania. So like I did catch like a bit of the ongoing feud with Cena and Edge after this one. But it kind of dropped off for me a bit for whatever reason. This match was incredible. And like you said, Chris, it was definitely the match that, he was coming off of he was already a one-time WWE champion at the point of this match. So like you said, like after having this and being put over like that and how brutal it was, it makes sense why he, eventually went on to become, what was it, 11 or 13 time or whatever champion. Like,
yeah, and I think
he's such a good, like you mentioned, his acting chops during the match, right? Like how they are now. Well, he obviously always kind of had that, right? Like how disturbed he looked, scream. There was a point where Foley had the bat like grinding against his face, and he had this hoarse kind of cracked voice scream, like to really, really sell it. Like, he's always paid attention to that extra little detail. That's definitely why he's one of he's probably top 3 for me, favorite wrestler all time. And then the other 2 in that top 3, they switch, but Edge is always constant for me. He's damn good, and I'm happy that he's back.
He's very good. Do either of you guys know or remember after this match, did they do anything further with Foley and Edge, or was this the end of that storyline completely?
I'm pretty sure that was the end, because from there he started to become obsessed with getting the championship back again. Because that was always kind of a thing that was Edge's character. He was obsessed with trying to get that championship. And when I did tune in bits and pieces of his Vicky Guerrero stint, right, like he was using her to get those title opportunities, right? Hence why he was called the ultimate opportunist or whatever, right? This match, I'm pretty sure the feud did end. And then from there, he feuded with Cena for, I think, the better part of 2006 into 7.
Yeah, Cena, the same night that this happened, Cena would have won the world title from JBL, and then he would have feuded with Edge a little bit the following year, and then at Mania 23, Cena defended against HBK. And a little bit after that WrestleMania, Edge came back into the mix too. So they had a really good fatal 4-way between Cena, Orton, Edge, and HBK. Really good fatal 4-way. So I was watching a little bit at that time. So Edge was almost always in the title picture. Like he was coming in and out like as they needed him. And then, and he ended up showing up on SmackDown, becoming a SmackDown mainstay, having that WrestleMania match with The Undertaker. Definitely an absolute legend. And for the record, it's 11 world championships and 14 tag team championships.
Wow.
14. Canadian legend, wrestling legend.
I know his stat. Like he has the most championships, like in terms of total numbers, out of anybody ever, I think.
31, I guess, is the total.
Yeah, like that's absurd. Like,
yeah. Respect to
how
Edge.
good. Yeah.
Thank you for that match.
Yeah, you're welcome.
To move on to the next segment here, this is a little bit before the next AEW pay-per-view, Double or Nothing. So we don't have to take too much time to go over this, but I wanted to have a nice little prediction segment because our predictions were so good for Money in the Bank. We might as well throw some things out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be a good one and a big one. So I'm excited. Let's do some predictions.
All right, so let's start with that ladder match. We don't even know all the competitors yet. We know 6 out of 8, but I just want to get a random winner prediction from each of us. So far, the competitors are Colt Cabana, Darby Allin, Phoenix, Orange Cassidy, Scorpio Sky, and Frankie Kazarian. There's going to be 2 more, so feel free to throw a prediction in that isn't even in the match if you want to, but those are the 6 that we know so far.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stick with what we know for now. Maybe after I'll throw in who I think might also get put in there. But as of what we know now, I'm leaning towards Darby Allin. And I was going to lean towards Frankie Kazarian, but there's a big problem there. Frankie Kazarian is also in there with Scorpio Sky. They're on a team. And at the beginning, I think we'll expect to see them working together. But what's going to happen if it comes down to those two? What's going to happen if one of those guys has the opportunity to win? Because technically, the match could be win before all guys are even in. I mean, the first 2 guys could win it because how it's going to work is every 90 seconds a new guy comes in. But the match ends when someone gets the chip. One of the first guys could get the chip. That meaning that we won't even see the rest of the guys. Now, what happens if, say, Frankie Kazarian or Scorpio Sky has a chance to get that chip and the only man standing in the way is his teammate? They're not going to let the other person win. So I wanted to, when I first started thinking about this match, I had Frankie Kazarian. I really wanted to see him. I thought he put on a great match beforehand with Jon Moxley, which you didn't really expect because you'd think Jon would just be squashing some guys right now. But he put on a really good match. And they already showed his singles ability outside of tag team wrestling. So to me, that's kind of indicating a change. Maybe there might be something going on sooner than later with SCU. I don't want to see it. I love that tag team. But I think that they're going to get in each other's way during this match. Now, whether that leads to a falling out with the tag team later on, I don't know. But I do think that they'll get in the way of each other, meaning that I don't think either one of those guys are going to win the match. So I'm going to go with Darby Allin myself as of what we know right now. As far as the last 2 people to enter, I'm kind of thinking they might throw in at least 1 or 2 people from other tag teams.
I think you have a very good point about SCU. They could progress a storyline with SCU based on something like that, where they're the 2 in the ring going for the title, or sorry, the chip. And I do think that they ultimately do see Scorpio Sky as a singles guy. I think like he's a lot younger than the other 2, so I think they're going to use SCU to elevate him. But just the fact that Scorpio Sky had that showing in the tag tournament when he had to replace Christopher Daniels after he got taken out, and how he had that little title match against Jericho too, where it was really competitive, I definitely think they are pretty high on him, and he's ultimately going to be a singles guy. So SCU will end at some point, and they're going to push Scorpio Sky for sure. Having said that, I agree with you on the Darby Allin pick for no reason other than I think he is just the guy they're probably the highest on in this match. I think they totally see him as a future star, and I think they've done a great job pushing him so far. So he is my pick as well.
Yeah, like for me too, it makes sense that, you know, it would seem right that Darby is the winner of this, just based off the momentum that he's got from his matches with Cody and, you know, and even his feud with Sammy there a bit. He's been in the spotlight a good bit. But, you know, I would honestly love to see Orange Cassidy take it. But I feel like, you know, when you don't have a crowd, like I feel like that moment would be better saved for the crowd, because the crowd would just go absolutely apeshit if he did end up like, even when he steps foot on that ladder to even try, you know, like the crowd would be going nuts. So, yeah. You know, I feel like that would be wasted in like not an empty arena, but you know what I mean, with no fans, right? Yeah. But that's my like what I would love to see, because I'm really high on him. But yeah, I guess like I said, Darby, I guess. But we got to wait and see who else is added into that. I know that the Elite and the Inner Circle are going to have their match, that stadium match. So I don't know if Hangman. Well, Hangman's kind of on the outs of the Elite anyway, right? Like from the last little bit that we're getting story-wise line, he's there with them, but he doesn't really fit in at the same time. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there was a clear, even when he was there was a clear disconnect, but I think you're right. I don't think they're going to progress that story too much while there's no crowd. I think there's just too much money in that, and they built too much into it in terms of a slow burn. So I do think that, yeah, they are going to find things to fill that kind of time until they can get back and have some shows with fans, and then they'll probably bring that Hangman, Kenny, Young Bucks, Elite storyline to a boil. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing I don't want to see. If they are going to add like the final couple people in, like say like a member from Inner Circle and a member from the Elite, I don't want to see Jake Hager get put into that match. If anybody deserves to be in that match, it's got to be Sammy Guevara. It's got to be him. Jake Hager is a snooze fest. I cannot stand watching him whatsoever. I haven't even watched any of his Bellator stuff. Like, as much as I would love to see his legit stuff, it just doesn't translate over into the wrestling.
It was impressive in the same way that Bobby Lashley's MMA run was impressive. Yeah, he won a few fights, but they weren't that great. They were not a good showing. And Jake Hager, like you said, is a snooze fest. I don't even think, honestly, he deserves to be in AEW personally. I think he's boring on the mic. I don't think he's an intimidating person. Yeah, he's a tall dude, but he doesn't give off the vibe that they've hired him to give off. I mean, he doesn't seem like a goon. He just seems like a fucking numpty.
Yeah. So I don't want him in there and involved whatsoever. But I do think Sammy deserves to be there. And then if I were going to pick a member from the Elite, it would have to be probably Hangman would make sense, because that would, that'd be a big spot for him to return and then also be in the stadium match. But it's got to be either him or Omega. And I don't know if Omega would. I think it's too soon for Omega to be main title picture right now. Like, I think Omega's in the perfect spot. Like, everybody knows how good he is. He could take that whenever he gets the chance. And, I think that they should still focus on building up other guys, and then Omega will get his shot. Definitely down the line. Like, there's no way he's not AEW champ at some point. So, anyway.
Yeah, personally, I would be very surprised if anyone who's in that stadium match is in the ladder match too. I don't think they're going to put someone through both of those matches. I think the stadium match is going to have some crazy spots, and they're probably going to leave the people in that to just be in that match. I think the ladder match is more so going to be like these mid-card guys who or parts of tag teams who could maybe be taken to the next level. Hangman, Omega, all those guys, I don't think they don't need an opportunity style match like this to be able to be number one contender, like you said, Matt. So I don't have any names that are coming to mind, but I do think it's going to be more mid-card guys.
What if they use, because I mean, we all know WWE just let go of a whole bunch of guys. There's a lot of free agents right now. So, I mean, they have some no TV clause contracts that they're wrestling around. What if we see a debut as one of the entries? Do you guys think a debut from one of the ex-WWE guys? Maybe we could see that.
That'd be cool. I don't know any of those people. So I mean,
there's been rumbling. Fuck, I forget the names because I didn't write down notes. I didn't expect to say this, but there's been rumblings that a few guys, maybe not the guys just released, but a few known names have already either signed or are planning to sign with AEW. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, maybe not the guys that just got released, like Kurt Angle and stuff like that. Maybe not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a new name show up as at least one of the two entries. personally. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And Chris, you just brought up a great point. I was going to argue with you a bit when you said, making the guys wrestle those two big matches in the same night. I was going to argue that because at this point, everything's pre-recorded and can be pre-recorded. So there's nothing to say those guys have to wrestle those two matches.
I think this event is supposed to be all live. It might not be the case, but
it may be, it may not be. I don't know. I'm just saying there's nothing holding them to make them do both matches in the same night. Nothing needs to be live right now. However, then you immediately came back with none of those guys need that push, which was a very good point. So I was gonna argue with you, but then you went and stomped me out before I could even utter a word.
It's a bit of both. But nevertheless, I am 100% confident that ladder match is going to be extremely good. Like there's too much talent. It's not gonna. I'd be shocked if it wasn't amazing.
I'm looking forward to this event. It is, if I'm correct, 1 week from today. Yes. And it's going to be so good. I mean, I had so much fun with Money in the Bank, but I had fun with Money in the Bank because of the main event. I'm excited for the entire card of what I'm seeing for AEW's Double or Nothing right now, and I cannot wait, hopefully, to watch it with you guys live.
That would be great. And the Double or Nothing pay-per-view marks the 1 year point of Jon Moxley's debut in AEW. I remember Kid was over at my place. We were watching the Raptors playoffs and Double or Nothing simultaneously, and crazy shit was going on in both, and it was awesome. But yeah, I just remember those. They had the casino theme, and they had that big stack of chips, and Moxley coming and attacking Omega and giving him the paradigm shift on the top of those stack of chips was pretty cool. So it marks a good point in AEW history. It was a really good pay-per-view last year, and I hope they keep it up.
Yeah. Is there any other match that you want to talk about on the card?
Well, I mean, there's quite a bit. I mean, Josh and I already talked a lot about Lance versus Cody on episode 0. Do you have a prediction for that?
I don't know. That's what I love about it too. Like, I'm so glad that it's not predictable. Like, that's one of the main things that I really love about AEW. They do a great job of keeping you guessing. Whereas WWE, storyline wise, like you come to your conclusions. It makes sense that this person would win, and then sure enough, that's what happens. If I were going to make a prediction, I would love to see Archer win it. Because that continues his push and makes him a bigger threat. But it's probably going to be Cody, because if Cody can't challenge for the AEW title, he'll probably win out this one. Maybe I don't know. I think actually I take it back. I think Archer's going to win it. I think Archer. It makes more sense for Archer to win. And then they could extend that feud even a little more. Maybe Jake gets involved, and messes Cody up, and then triggers a rematch, right? So stretch it out a little more, and don't rush into finishing the story yet. And just stretch it out, and then have that feud be, the feud that carries that belt and brings it up for, the first little bit.
I agree with you 100%, dude. The only issue is one thing I can see becoming an issue is ego. So Mike Tyson is presenting the winner with the belt. And I just think it would be so egotistical and fucking hilarious if Cody went in, won, just to have Tyson present him with the belt. But I agree. I would rather see Lance win. I think it'd be a better feud. I think it would travel things on, and then maybe we could actually weasel into the storyline. Maybe Jericho or somebody being like, hey, wait a minute, you shouldn't be allowed to compete for that title. Burr, 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 burr. And him going, well, it's not the title I said I wouldn't compete for. I would really like to see that worked into the storyline of people going, well, you said you wouldn't compete for this title, and then him going, well, loophole, I can compete for other titles. I want to see that worked in a little more than it is, so I'm hoping Lance wins.
Yeah. And then at least either way, you get this title that will be hopefully allow a lot of the mid-card guys to shine and actually have something to compete for in the long term. But I do agree. I lean a bit more towards Archer, but I go back and forth on this one too. I could see both happening for sure. But yeah, I think Archer, like you guys said, progresses things a little bit more storyline-wise if he's the champ.
I honestly forgot that Tyson was a part of the belt unveiling and rewarding it to the winner. So
he's back, baby. He's
Yeah.
in a little boxing match too, completely separate from what the fuck we're talking about. But who would have thought in 2020 Mike Tyson was gonna punch somebody again?
yeah, man, he's training again. He looks good. Man, I'll watch that too.
He's also on Snoop Dogg's YouTube show, just chain smoking. So it's crazy. That caliber chain smoking.
Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about pot a bunch too. So
He's Mike Tyson. He's the one dude that can get away with chain smoking while he's fucking knocking the dude out.
Yeah. There's a Tom Segura comedian at like part of his bit when he was hanging out with him. He's like, he had a guy there just to light his cigarettes. Like, how bad?
Mike Tyson is like what most people hope to be someday.
you know what I could see happening is, well, Tyson's going to knock somebody out. Absolutely, Tyson's going to hit
Might
somebody.
be you. I'm
Well,
making calls. I'm
I hope
trying.
it's you because you deserve it. You fucking dickhead. But
You can't knock me out. I'm terrified, and I'd immediately tap out and admit defeat. I'd be like, I'm a grappler. You win, sir.
you're a grappler.
And he would look at you, and you'd be like, please don't punch me. He'd like, that's a stupid mask, man. And then you'd be dead. And then you'd have to go buy a new mask. Wouldn't that be a shame if you showed up with a new mask and everyone knew it just because Mike Tyson punched your fucking lights out?
Sorry, I wasn't listening because I got distracted by your horrible Tyson impression.
Just increases YouTube views.
So yeah, I don't care what you said. Out of the two of us, if actually let's pose this to Chris, who would Tyson knock out first, me or Josh? It's okay to say Josh. I know.
I think you do both at the same time. Just
He
after
might knock us both
my
out at the same
situation,
time.
I think if Tyson was in my situation, having to facilitate a podcast while two people are arguing half the time, I think he'd knock both of you out at once.
I'd agree with that. I think that he probably would too.
So having
But
said
at least I wouldn't shit myself when I went out like you.
so having
I'm
said
sorry,
all-
that's not fair. It's a serious issue, I know. Okay, let's move on and do the thing. Yeah.
bringing it back around to the wrestling. Do we have any more predictions for Double or Nothing? We got MJF versus Jungle Boy. We got Private Party versus Best Friends for the tag team #1 contendership. Moxley versus Brody, and the stadium match. Any general thoughts on any of those before we sign off?
Nothing that jumps to mind, but I do really want to talk with you guys a little bit about Brody and Moxley. What's going through your guys' heads? Because to me, this is an interesting match. I mean, Brody Lee just came in, and he really hasn't done a whole lot, technically, to earn a title shot yet. But he comes in and demands one, and he gets it. And I'm not necessarily against that because I like his character and I like what he's doing. But do you think it's enough to take the title off Moxley this soon after Moxley becoming the champion? And not only that, what does it mean for Brody Lee's character if he loses this match? He's got a lot of followers, and if he loses to Moxley now, does that not derail the whole build-up that they're trying to give to Brody Lee right now? Or is it possible we just see a dirty finish, Moxley retains the title, but Brody still looks strong?
I'm leaning towards a dirty finish because I'm having a hard time envisioning a finish that makes both guys look strong that isn't dirty. Exactly like you said. Moxley losing to Brody Lee for the title at this point. You know, Moxley's a huge star. It would take some balls and I would like it, but I don't think they're taking the title off him right now. But at the same time, you know, Brody Lee's been booked really strong. The Dark Order has had a long build-up behind it. I'd also be pretty surprised if they built him up. He hasn't even debuted that long ago, and then he's just beaten clean. You know, I don't think either of those results works out for both guys. So I think there has to be some shenanigans, and I think maybe the feud continues a little bit. So I honestly don't even have a solid prediction for it. I just think the feud is going to be a little fucky. That's all I can really say.
Kid?
I think what will most likely happen, like this would be my prediction for the finish. I think that Brody will because of his size, he'll probably knock Moxley around a good little bit so that, if he does end up losing the match, it doesn't completely hurt him. I think what will happen is I think one of his goons in the Dark Order is going to do something to fuck up because they already hinted at promos that the people that are a part of the Dark Order, they're not perfect, right? And he had them all lined up, and he's actually like demolished a few members like with multiple power bombs after they fucked up in their matches. So I think what will happen is they'll protect Lee with a goon causing the match, like maybe disqualification or something. So Moxley will retain, and then Brody will fucking go off on his the goon that cost him the match. To completely demolish him, like over the top, like probably some tables and chair shots and stuff. Like he'll
barbed wire, why not?
Yeah, like I think he'll be super brutal to the person who fucked it up for him. And then he'll make an argument that he never lost, or that I just see that being the way that it protects Brody while also still establishing that the Dark Order is not perfect. I guess that's how I think it would go. It doesn't make sense for Moxley to lose it to him, like because like you said, he just got here, right? Like they're still building his character. I wouldn't have even noted any like Vince McMahon similarities. I think, Josh, you brought that up on the last episode. I didn't even get that. But I do kind of see it now that you mention it. And I think that they should, give him some more time to flesh that out and then maybe give him a run at some point. There's so many guys that deserve a run with that belt. So I don't know. I think he's got to wait a little bit. Get a little more familiar with the crowd. That's my take on it.
It's a good. I think that's a good prediction. I think that's actually really solid. If the minions try to interfere in the match, but they end up fucking up and they end up costing Brody the match when they're trying to help him. That seems like a solid prediction to me.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you as much as I'd like to.
All right, yeah. So we got some solid predictions in for Double or Nothing. I'm really excited for the show. Fans there or not, it's been a while since we've had an AEW pay-per-view. So I'm very excited to discuss the results after it's over and hopefully watch a very entertaining show. Yes, sir. All right, well, we got lots more matches to go through, so we'll see what's up.
We're doing it.
What's up
30-day podcast starting now. No breaks.
Should we, I don't know, should we make, it a thing to suggest a match at the end of each episode?
We've kind of been taking the list from the previous week and picking a match out of that.
Well, and this week's was a tag team, naming tag team, just our favorite tag team. So we can make a tag team match of some sort.
So we'll probably pick one of we all listed all of our favorite tag teams. So what we'll probably do is pick a match or two from the tag teams we all mentioned for next week, and then we'll do at least one match from those, and then that's why we call it the list.
Yeah, no, well, I'm just asking because I would love.
Well, stop. I mean, we're impressed by all the degrees hanging up there. I'm sure the people at Value Village probably want them back. They were accidentally donated, but you go ahead. You go ahead and hang up whatever you can buy.
Don't forget what I said. If you push me too far.
I've already forgotten what you said. I've already forgotten who you are. I don't even care. What?
Oh, you listening now?
What? You muted me again, didn't you? No, you didn't. Wow.
No, I didn't. I'm just waiting for you to shut up because I'm telling you, keep pushing me. You're not going to like who I become.
That seems like a good enough place to sign off for this week. So,
you guys want me to share my knowledge and my excellent taste in matches? You guys let me know. I'll suggest any match that you guys want to see because I got a bunch too. I can contribute to this list. I know I have, Chris. We've talked about this before. We got a bunch of matches that we want to watch. Captain Numbnuts over there, he's got some matches he wants to watch. probably Mr. America versus Hulk Hogan. So
that never happened, you fucking idiot. You have to watch wrestling to be able to continue to do this.
EDP, special guest referee, anyway.
It's like watching a train derail. That's what listening to you talk is like.
Well, guys, we got hopefully many more episodes in the future and many more matches within those. So, for this week, episode 2, this is the List Podcast signing off. I'm Chris, that's the kid, and that's Josh. And we will see you again very soon.